Hi, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to the National Marine Sanctuary's live interaction with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. Today, we are going to learn about marine mammals in special marine places. So we will start in approximately 2 minutes, but you are in the right spot. All right, hello again, and welcome to the live interaction with National Marine Sanctuaries and Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. Today, we are going to be talking with Pacific Mammal Research about marine mammals in special marine places. But first, I'm going to turn it over to Joe Grabowski from Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants to tell us a little bit more about what we are in for.
All right. Well, great. So good to have everybody joining us live today. Hello and welcome to today's live interaction with NOAA's Office of National Marine Sanctuaries. As mentioned, my name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be hosting for today. And I also run an organization called Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. So I'm going to share my screen for a little moment here, and I want to share a little bit about that with you before we get started. So if you check out exploringbytheseat.com, we bring science, adventure, exploration, and conservation live into classrooms across North America and beyond through virtual guest speakers and virtual field trips. So we're running 3 to 4 virtual events every day with scientists, explorers, adventurers all over the world. So as you cruise down the website, you can see that there's a link to sign up to get the updates through the newsletter, see what's coming up. And a quick example or two of some events coming up. We've got live events with the Toronto Zoo coming up. We've got a climate detective event looking for shipwrecks in the Arctic. We'll be checking out the seahorses at the Ripley's Aquarium and also diving into Madagascar with the Duke Lemur Center to learn about some of their conservation activities. So that's a small sample of some of the events that we do have coming up. And one more thing to highlight today, coming up this weekend, May 22nd to the 24th, we have the Global Biodiversity Festival. This will all be online. You can find the website at globalbiofest.com. I'll share that link in the chat bar as well. And you will find that weekend 60 plus speakers from all over the world, scientists, explorers, policymakers, conservationists, photographers, filmmakers, you name it. And we're all going to be sharing the wonderful life on our planet, the challenges it's facing, as well as some good news conservation stories and what you can do to help protect our planet's biodiversity. So it's going to be an absolute blast. So we will be using Slido today. So Slido makes things nice and interactive for us. You're able to join really easily to take part in the poll questions, the question and answer portion, as well as a little interactive quiz. So a few ways you can join. You can see this here is the website for Slido, www.sli.do. When you get to the website, it's going to ask you for an event code. If you put in mammal, that will bring you in with us. There's a direct link as well, which I will share in the chat bar shortly. And one more option, we've got in the top corner, the QR code. If your phone is handy, you can scan this right off of the slide and it'll take you right in on your phone and you can take part in the quiz when the time comes. So I'm going to leave a couple more seconds in case there's some QR code scanners out there. All right, and I am going to bring things back now. I'm going to stop my screen share. There we go. So today we are taking a virtual field trip throughout the National Marine Sanctuaries to discover marine mammals. we're joined by Pacific Mammal Research scientist and researcher, Dr. Cindy Elliser, and she's going to highlight the unique discoveries about marine mammal behaviors all throughout the sanctuaries. But before we throw things over to Cindy today, we are going to check back in with Hannah MacDonald, education specialist with NOAA's Office of National Marine Sanctuaries.
Thank you, Joe. I am excited to be here today, and this is the first time, if you've been tuning into our live interactions, that we are testing out the closed captioning feature. So let us know what you think if you're interested in that. And thank you, Joe, for also highlighting Slido. He will be dropping the direct link in the chat right on the control panel, so you can click on that. If you don't have access to Slido, feel free to answer the questions in the question box also on the control panel. We will be monitoring both. So before I dive deeper into National Marine Sanctuaries, I am super excited that we will be welcoming Dr. Cindy Elliser from Pacific Mammal Research, who is the research director, to tell us a little bit more about marine mammals and her work. Before that, I'm going to take us on a virtual tour of National Marine Sanctuaries by looking at the different marine mammals that live inside of them. So the National Marine Sanctuary System is a network of 14 national marine sanctuaries and 2 national marine monuments. So we're spanning over 600,000 square miles of marine area that we protect. So we are going to get started very interactive with Slido. So I want to know if you are watching this live stream with other people. If so, how many?
All right, so just a quick reminder to everybody that the link is open. I can see some people already joining and starting to vote on the items. So you can find at sli.do, we'll bring you to Slido, and then use event code mammal. I also posted it in the chat. Let's take a look at how the first results are coming in so far. So a lot of solo viewers today. Hannah are tuning in with us today.
Very cool. Well, I'm excited to have everybody here with us. And on to the next Slido question. Have you heard of National Marine Sanctuaries before?
All right, let's take a quick look here. Oh, 91% say absolutely, they have heard of the sanctuaries.
That's great to hear. Well, I'm excited then to take you on a tour of them. So we are going to start in the most northwest corner, also where Dr. Cindy Elliser is closest to, Olympic Coast National Marine Sanctuary off the coast of Washington. Here we have a southern orca resident, which maybe Cindy will be able to provide us a little bit more detail on, but they will be seen in Olympic Coast National Marine Sanctuary. Going further south, we have Greater Farallones National Marine Sanctuary off the coast of California. In this National Marine Sanctuary, you will see an elephant seal. These elephant seals winter on shore. In Cordell Bank National Marine Sanctuary, there is the Pacific white-sided dolphin. This is one of 36 marine mammals that are found between Greater Farallones and Cordell Bank National Marine Sanctuary, which are very close to each other in Northern California. Also in Northern California, we have Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary, where the northern fur seal lives. Now, this fur seal spends most of its time offshore in Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. In Channel Islands National Marine Sanctuary, off the coast of Santa Barbara, California, if you're very lucky, you'll see the largest species on the planet, the blue whale, passing through Channel Islands National Marine Sanctuary. You can often see whales migrating through between the months of May and November. In Papahanaumokuakea Marine National Monument, way west out in the Pacific, we protect the Hawaiian monk seal, which happens to be a critically endangered species. Within the area of Hawaii, there's only about 1,100 left. In Hawaiian Islands Humpback Whale National Marine Sanctuary, I bet you can guess what marine mammal they are protecting: the humpback whale. This area is the breeding grounds and the warm waters that the humpback whales thrive in. So that is why there's a National Marine Sanctuary there. Going even further west into the Pacific, is also a place for humpback whales. This is the National Marine Sanctuary of American Samoa. Humpback whales are known to travel over 5,000 miles. That's the longest migration that has been done. And to compare that to the size of the United States, that's 2 times the width in miles of the United States. So that's really far, making their way all the way to American Samoa. In Flower Garden Banks National Marine Sanctuary, which is 100 nautical miles off the coast of Galveston, Texas, you can find bottlenose dolphin. In Florida Keys National Marine Sanctuary, one of my favorite marine mammals is the manatee. So you can often find the manatee in these waters eating from the seagrass beds. They can eat up to 150 pounds of vegetation a day. In Gray's Reef National Marine Sanctuary, they have seen the northern Atlantic right whale. This is one of the most endangered whale species. And this is, again, in Gray's Reef National Marine Sanctuary in the Atlantic. In Monitor National Marine Sanctuary, which I would like to mention is the very first National Marine Sanctuary ever designated to protect the USS Monitor, a Civil War era shipwreck. You can also find bottlenose dolphin. And going to our newest National Marine Sanctuary, Mallows Bay Potomac River National Marine Sanctuary, in between Maryland and Virginia, you will be lucky to see a river otter, so a different type of marine mammal than we've been covering in the previous sites. Now, Mallows Bay Potomac River is known for protecting the ghost fleet of shipwrecks. So it was just established in November of 2019. Going further north to Massachusetts Bay, another National Marine Sanctuary that protects humpback whales, known for fantastic whale watching in Massachusetts. Stellwagen Bank protects marine mammals and marine seabirds all the way down to deep sea coral, so a very unique site. And going up to the Great Lakes, Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary, another unique marine mammal is the beaver, a freshwater mammal. So now that we've gone on a virtual tour, I would like to know if you have ever visited a National Marine Sanctuary before. And bonus points if you have visited a National Marine Sanctuary and spotted a marine mammal.
All right, very cool. I'll give a couple seconds for some of those answers to come in. Let's take a look at how the results are showing up so far. All right, 56% say they have absolutely visited a National Marine Sanctuary.
That's great. Then another 50% of you hopefully will get a chance to soon. If not, we also have virtual dives that essentially take you there at sanctuaries.noaa.gov/VR. I'll drop the link in the chat, a really great way to experience sanctuaries. And before we turn it over to Dr. Elliser, I want to tell you a little bit more about what the National Marine Sanctuary System does. So we protect everything from the sea giants, like the marine mammals and humpback whales, all the way down to the small sea life like reef fish and corals. We are protecting places with abundant biodiversity. We provide shelter for some of the most charismatic marine species. In this photo, you'll see the Hawaiian monk seal again. We also protect maritime heritage. Like I mentioned, the USS Monitor and the ghost fleet of shipwrecks in Mallows Bay Potomac River, including the freshwater sanctuary site Thunder Bay that protects over 200 shipwrecks. And we also are mandated under the National Marine Sanctuaries Act to protect these resources. We do that through resource protection management and as well as education and outreach programs like the one we are connecting you with today. So these are our special marine places. These are our places to paddle, to fish, to snorkel, to boat, to surf. And I want to also add that these are our special places to do marine mammal sighting. But this is a trick question. I only mentioned it once at the very beginning, but how many of you recall how many square miles the National Marine Sanctuaries encompass?
All right, couldn't fool our viewers today. 72% went with 600,000 square miles.
Yes, that is correct. All right. Well, with that, I am then going to turn it over to Dr. Elliser from Pacific Mammal Research. I am going to give her screen share. All right. And I want to thank her again for joining us.
All right, thank you very much for having me. Let me show my screen here and then go to there. Let's see. Hopefully that's working. And I apologize if you hear any barking in the background. Hopefully you don't, but working from home and we have a dog, so she gets a little excited sometimes. So thank you guys very much for having me. And I'm going to be talking to you today about the work that we do at Pacific Mammal Research and also about the marine mammals that Hannah has already talked about some, and the ones that we see here in where we work, which is called the Salish Sea. So let's start off with, what is the Salish Sea? So the Salish Sea is the inland waters of Washington State in Canada. So here's Washington State, and then Canada is up here. There's a nice line right here in the middle. And you can see where the Olympic Coast National Marine Sanctuary is, just off the coast of Washington. So the area in here, the Salish Sea, is a big area. It's really highly biodiverse. So we have lots of mammals and birds and fish and invertebrates. So it's a really important area to protect, and the sanctuaries help do that because the health of the ecosystem in the Salish Sea is directly related to the waters that are feeding it, which come from the Pacific coast. And so all the waters that are being protected and the animals that are being protected in those sanctuaries help to create a healthy ecosystem in the Salish Sea. And I'll talk to you a little bit about which animals we actually see come into the Salish Sea and go in the sanctuaries, some of the marine mammals that we have. But regardless, whether the marine mammal goes out to the sanctuary or not, the animals in here are helped by the sanctuary and protections that they have. So these are the marine mammals that we have here in the Salish Sea. And remember that a marine mammal is one that's in water, in the ocean, and that it gives live birth, nurses their young, and has hair. Now, you may be asking where the hair is on a whale, a dolphin, or porpoise, but it's actually on their mouth or their rostrum. They have a couple hairs, but they lose them a few hours after birth. So technically, they had hair at one point. But we are looking here at the eared seals, and we have the stellar sea lions, we have California sea lions, we have elephant seals and harbor seals. Those are our pinnipeds, which means feather or winged foot, because they have flippers for feet instead of feet. And then we have our cetaceans. So our cetaceans are our whales, dolphins, and porpoises. And everybody always forgets about the porpoises part, but after today you won't. So they kind of get left off. We have minke whales, gray whales, humpback whales. We have both types of orcas, the transient orcas or big killer whales that are marine mammal eaters. And we have the resident orcas, which are the fish eaters. We have Pacific white-sided dolphins, and we have harbor porpoises and Dulles porpoises. So the ones that we know that go back out, go into the Salish Sea and come back out to the coast are our humpbacks and our grays. The humpback whales, we have a lot more of them are coming into the Salish Sea, so their populations are doing really well. We have some gray whales that come every single year into our area that have come out from the coast. The orcas, both residents and the transients, are big killer whales. They also go back and forth between the Salish Sea and the coast. Some of the sea lions as well, the Californians and the stellar sea lions, will go into and out of the Salish Sea. So again, those are directly benefited by those sanctuaries. But even the animals that hang out here all the time in the Salish Sea, the harbor porpoises, for example, they are benefited as well because those outer coasts are keeping the Salish Sea healthy. So these are just some pictures that we have that I've taken in our study area or near our study area of the marine mammals we get to see every day by being out there and looking. This is a California sea lion, and this is like a female or a juvenile male. They both have kind of a low head here, but the one on the right, you can see this is a male California sea lion because of the big sagittal crest or the big forehead that he has. That's a very good indication that that's a male, adult male. We have stellar sea lions, so they're lighter in color than the California sea lions. And you can see here, this one's taking a very big fish that he slashes back and forth on the water to break it up to be able to eat it. So getting a tasty snack. And then of course we have the harbor seals. Of course, this is our favorite because it's one of our study animals directly. But you can see he's taking a nice little snack too, but just a little one. Then we have humpbacks. Like I said, the humpbacks are doing really well, and we have the population is getting larger. We take pictures of their flukes, and you can see there's pigmentation patterns on the underside, and then the nicks and notches here on the trailing edge. That's what researchers are able to use to identify them. So if we're out and we get a picture like this, we take it and then we send it to researchers that are doing direct research with this species. Same thing with gray whales. So gray whales here, you can notice they don't have a dorsal fin, which is kind of odd. They just have like a little ridge. But you can look and see the pigmentation and patches and things that you see along the side of the animal here, and they use that to identify them. So again, we also send those pictures to researchers that are tracking the gray whales. Minke whales also have pigmentation patterns on the side, and they also use the dorsal fin shape and size to be able to identify them. Now, these guys are very shy, and we don't see them. They're not as common to see as some of the other marine mammals. So it's really exciting when we do get to see one, and one came into our study area last year, so we were very excited. Then we had some transient orcas or killer whales come into our study area, and that's really exciting to be able to see. They are the ones that eat marine mammals, so they would eat our porpoises and seals, which isn't super great, but that's the way the food chain works. But it was very exciting to see them. And they also, again, do photo identification with them by taking pictures and looking at the saddle patches and the dorsal fin size and shape, so they can track the individuals over time. And so all the information that we know about these whales and dolphins and porpoises, when we can do photo ID, is from that, is being able to know the individuals and where they go and what they do. So it's a really important aspect of the work. But harbor porpoises, again, our favorite here, they really haven't had photo ID done with them. They're a little bit shy, they're evasive, they're kind of dark in color, and we'll go through a little bit more why that's the case, but they haven't had as much research conducted with them. But before we get to that, I'd like you to, a lot of people ask, one of our biggest questions is what's the difference between a porpoise and a dolphin? And so Hannah's going to do a little video that we put together. We have it on our YouTube channel with some other things, so you can always go check that out afterwards. But here's a little bit about porpoises and dolphins.
One of our most commonly asked questions is what is the difference between a dolphin and a porpoise? The terms used to be used interchangeably in the past, and while both are cetaceans, which include whales, dolphins, and porpoises, they actually are in different taxonomic families. Let's go over how to tell them apart. Porpoises are in the family Phocinidae. There are 6 different species, and in general, porpoises are smaller, but have a more robust body than dolphins, and prefer colder waters. The example species I will use today is the Harbour porpoise. There are a few key features to tell the difference between a porpoise and a dolphin. First, let's look at the most commonly seen part of the animal. Porpoises have a small triangular-shaped dorsal fin. Next, porpoises have a round, blunt mouth with no pronounced beak or rostrum. And if you ever get to look inside their mouth, you will find spade-shaped teeth. They also differ in their behavior. In general, depending on the species of course, porpoises live in smaller groups and are more shy and elusive. Blink and you may miss them. Dolphins, on the other hand, are in the family Delphinidae. With 33 species, there is a little more variation within this family compared to porpoises. But for most species, the key differences hold true. The example species I will use today is the well-known bottlenose dolphin. In general, dolphin species are larger than porpoises, but with a more streamlined body shape. Now we will revisit those features. The dolphin's dorsal fin is more curved or falcate in appearance. In most species, their head has an elongated beak or rostrum. Here is where some species vary, as some dolphins, for example, the largest dolphin species, the orca, or killer whale, has a more blunt mouth. Inside their mouth, you will find cone-shaped teeth. Dolphins are much more likely to be seen being acrobatic out of water. riding the bows and wakes of boats, and breaching, for example. In general, depending on the species of course, they are more gregarious, living in larger groups than porpoises. So now you know the difference between a dolphin and a porpoise. So next time you are out on the water, look for those dorsal fins. Be sure to like the video and subscribe for more, and check out our website for more information.
Okay, so is it sharing?
Yep, we
Okay.
see your screen.
Okay. All right, so now you know the difference between a porpoise and a dolphin. It's very important because they are different. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the harbor porpoise because, again, that's our favorite animal and one that not many people know about. So their scientific name is Phocina phocina, and they are the second smallest cetacean in the world. So quite small animals compared to other marine mammals. And so they're about 150 pounds and only 5 to 5.5 feet. So quite small compared to the larger whales that can get to 40 tons and 50 feet long, for example. Their lifespan is about 8 to 25 years, and we really don't know exactly how long they live because we don't know a lot about these animals. Again, they have not been researched as much as others, but we do know that they live a shorter amount of time than most dolphin species. Most dolphin species are 50 plus years, so they get through life a little bit quicker. So because of that, they have to give birth quicker and more often. So every 1 to 2 years, they'll give birth, as opposed to 3 to 5 years for a lot of other dolphin species. So they kind of like live life in the fast lane was the title of one paper that came out. So when you see a harbor porpoise, they are very sleek in nature when they come to the surface. So you'll see their little dorsal fin, but it's very quiet, basically. So this is a typical surfacing of a harbor porpoise. And there's not much splash to it. There's not a lot of craziness going on there. And lots of times you'll miss it because they're very, very quick. And again, not much splashing. So because of this, because these guys are kind of low profile, very small, hard to follow, there really hasn't been a lot of research done. And so because of that, we know relatively little about their population structure, their distribution, movement, ecology, behavior. We just don't know a lot. And again, right down here, you'll see this is called a fluke print. And this is where you probably saw something and you look, and then all you see is this. And that is where the dolphin or whale or porpoise has just surfaced and then gone down and dove. And all you see is the little print from the little wake that they make as they dive. So we really don't know a lot. The one thing we do know, we have 2 different stocks. And so you'll see the inland waters here, that's the Salish Sea. That's so harbor porpoises that are here stay in this area. And then you have the ones along the coast. And so you'll see some of those individuals are going to be hanging out right in that sanctuary that is so critical. But again, all of them, the animals along here and in the Salish Sea, all benefit from the sanctuary there that's on the coast. So we can study these guys a few different ways. The first one is aerial surveys. These are great for abundance estimates. It's a snapshot in time, and you have to have a plane. Strandings also give us a lot of good information. However, we have to remember that the stranded individuals are most likely not a good representation or the best representation of the healthy population, because many of them are sick, which is why they strand. So it gives us some good information, but is limited. Acoustically, we can put hydrophones in the water and listen to them. Now, this only happened within the last 10, 15, 20 years. Because porpoises have high frequency vocalizations, which means that we can't hear them normally. So we've only recently been able to develop technology to be able to record it and then modify it so that we could actually hear it. And then the most common way to research marine mammals is, of course, go out on boats. This is myself and my assistant and an intern out on a boat. But again, the harbor porpoises are a bit less excited about boats, a little bit more shy. So it's a little bit harder to be able to follow them. So we were looking, can we do this from land? And there are many places around the world that you can watch marine mammals from land. And this is great because there's no interaction with the boats. We're not, going into their area. Sometimes we have to, but this is a great way that you can go see these animals and just see them in their natural habitat. And so we have a land-based study site that we're able to take pictures from. So where we are located is called Burroughs Pass, and this is off Fidalgo Island in Washington State, close to the San Juan Islands, if you've heard of them. And it's a perfect place to sit and observe these harbor porpoises and harbor seals, and occasionally a humpback whale, a gray whale, which just came through our pass a couple of days ago. And there's even an elephant seal there right now, which is really weird, but we get to see lots of cool stuff in this area. So we get to learn a lot about marine mammals by observing and watching them. And that's our main thing that we do. So what we do is we go out and we have our sighting sheets. We take environmental information. We observe their behavior. We write down what's going on, what's happening, because we want to be able to see, like, well, are they here during certain tides, during certain rip currents? What are they doing when they're here during these certain times? So really to be able to find out why they're there, what they're doing, and when they're there, and learn more about their daily lives. So we take that information, and then of course, like I said, we know a lot about many of these different species because we know individuals. We know individuals have moved, gone from Hawaii up to up to here and farther up with humpback whales, because we are able to identify individuals and through their fluke patterns or their dorsal fins or their pigmentation patterns. So we're able to learn all those things we don't know about harbor porpoises. We're able to learn through knowing the individuals. So this is why we at Pacific Mammal Research really wanted to try and do this for porpoises. Again, they haven't been because they don't have really big overt markings, and remember, their dorsal fins are only a few inches tall. So finding a mark on them that we could use is a little bit more difficult than other species. So the one thing that helps is having a really long lens. So we have a 400 millimeter, and we just got another one with a little bit longer lens, so it allows us to be able to take these pictures and capture these individuals on film. So the pictures that we take and that you'll see, remember that I've zoomed in with the camera and then I've gone back with the computer and zoomed in again because they're that far away and they're that small. So we really needed a good technology and the lenses to be able to take these pictures of these individuals and be able to use them. So we were one of the first ones to show that you can use photo identification to track individuals over time, individual harbor porpoises. That hadn't really been shown before. So that was very exciting. We use basically the main marks are pigmentation and scars and lesions. So you can see the coloration patterns here and pigmentation and scars that they have. Unfortunate for them, but good for us that they have them so we can track them. Along their peduncle, along the tailstock, you'll see nicks and notches and things that we use, and also the fin trailing edge. So a few individuals actually have nicks and notches in their dorsal fin. And then because these guys are harder to identify than other marine mammal species, we use things like dorsal fin shape and size and the width of the base, along with overall coloration, just as confirmation marks to make sure that we're identifying the individual. So it's very exciting that we can use this photo ID technique on this species, which hadn't been shown before. So long story short, we can do it. We went out, took pictures, and found that the animals did have natural markings that were stable over time. And we have over 85 individuals that we've identified, and we know that they are in the past. We've re-identified them in days, weeks, months, and even years. So we have some individuals that we've known for multiple years that are able to come back to this pass. So we know that at least for some individuals that are this place is very important to them, and that likely there's a smaller communities that we need to be looking at rather than looking them at as a whole population. There's probably some subsets that interact together that we need to look at. So a few things. So what we do is we take our pictures of our animals, we add that with our observational data and environmental data that we collect, and we create scientific journal articles and also present to things like this, public education, because we want to share the information with scientists and the public to be able to learn more about these animals and to better protect them. So some fun stuff that we've learned over the last 6 years of studying these animals. These guys, we see them foraging a lot. And we do know that from other studies that they can starve in as little as 3 days if they're already not doing well. So they are, other marine mammal species can last longer than that without food. But these guys live in really cold waters, have a high metabolic rate. So they need to have predictable food sources. And that's one of the things I think that keeps them coming back to the pass, is that there are predictable patches of food that they can get. And so for any marine mammal species, if you see birds kind of hanging out overhead and splashing down below, you're most likely having marine mammals or something else, but likely marine mammals eating or catching fish below there. And the gulls like to get a free lunch, right? Let the marine mammals do the work and then they just dive down and grab it. So you can see here a porpoise just splashing through. This is called a surface chase. So the animal comes up and goes along the surface and splashes out as they're chasing a fish. And this one you can see this one hasn't quite broken the surface of the water yet. He's coming up to do a surface chase, gonna get the fish, but sometimes the fish gets away. So here's the fish, lucky for that fish, or maybe not, because like I said, the gulls like to get some free food. So many times we see the gulls dive down and come up with the fish rather than the porpoise. So they forage a lot in this area because of what they need. So mainly they feed on small forage fish, but things smaller than say 30 centimeters or so. But recently we've documented, because we've been out there looking, that they catch things like salmon and American shad, which are much bigger than the regular fish that we know that they eat. And so this picture here is of a coho salmon, and you can see him grabbing it and then actually losing it, and then he ends up grabbing it again. We did some research with our friends in California. We collaborated with them, and they found these porpoises down there were eating American shad in a very similar way as the ones catching salmon up here. So that was something we documented just this year, that these animals are taking these very large fish, sometimes could be almost half the size of the animal, of the harbor porpoise. So almost like they wouldn't be able to swallow it, but perhaps somehow they can. So that's been some exciting things that we've been learning. And to note with the sanctuaries, the salmon that we see here, a lot of those are they're going out to the coast and then coming into the Salish Sea. So those sanctuaries are helping protect the salmon that are being eaten by orcas and other larger marine mammals, including seals and sea lions, and also apparently porpoises. They usually, again, are seen in smaller groups of 2 to 3. Most dolphin species have 3 to 5 or more. So the question becomes, how social are they? And we really don't know exactly how social they are, because we don't know who's in the groups. We don't know if these are individuals that are always hanging out together, or maybe they just hung out once and never again. Is it all males? Is it all females? Is it mothers and calves? All that kind of stuff. So that's one thing that we can figure out with photo ID, is to find out which animals are hanging out with which animals and what their social structure is. And that's one of my my things that I really want to learn more about with these guys. Another interesting thing that we've learned more about is their reproduction. And again, this was in collaboration with our friends in California again. And we had caught these pictures and we said, oh, wow, they're coming out of the water. They're doing aerials. And that's not something you see very often at all with harbor porpoises. So we were excited with that. But when we talked with our colleagues in California, we ended up understanding that these are actually mating events. So the male comes up out of the water, always on the left side of the female. And the female here is the one with the tail that's kind of flipping away. So the female goes away and the male comes up and jumps on the left-hand side. And we've learned more about why they only do it on the left-hand side. It has to do with their anatomy. And that most of the time when we see these aerials, it's actually mating attempts. Again, nobody knew that before. And this is something unique to these animals. So collaborating with our colleagues, we've learned that much quicker than we would have otherwise. And so of course, reproduction leads to babies. And the way you can tell a baby for most cetaceans, especially dolphin and porpoise species, is that when they come up, you'll see down here, the baby's coming up, and instead of just doing that nice little clean roll at the surface, they're actually coming up with their entire chin out of the water and then slapping it down, because they just haven't figured out how to do that slow roll. So we call that chin slap breathing. So if you ever see that where there's a larger animal coming up and another one come up and goes splash like that, then that is most likely a very young animal that hasn't quite learned how to do that slow roll yet. And so a few other things, excuse me, that we've seen, we do have some highly scarred individuals. And so this one up top, we have line, a mark here, and it's hard to see on this picture, but she actually has line, and then a big chunk taking out of here. And what we believe that is probably from a propeller mark. That's very indicative of how propellers would hurt the animal, but we're not sure. We have other animals like this that have puncture wounds and other small markings and larger scars, and we just don't know what they're from. And so by taking photos of these guys, we can hopefully figure out and collaborate with other people to figure out what these marks are from, and then be able to protect them from them, because we can't protect it if we don't know what's hurting them. And one of the last things I want to say is that harbor porpoises, again, more shy, don't really like boats that much. Dolphins will bow ride and wake ride and you know, play in the wakes and bows of boats. But porpoises generally are thought not to, but we do have documentation, and they do it a fair amount actually. So this is a picture of a porpoise wake riding. He's coming up, riding the wake, coming down. It's just a little fun, just like surfing in the waves. And so we do see them do this quite a bit. They just do it a little differently. Instead of following the boat and jumping along the wake as it's going or on the bow, the porpoises wait for the boat to pass, and as the wake is kind of petering out, that's when they go on and ride it. So they'll ride it 1 or 2 times and then be like, oh, that was fun. And then they head back to whatever they're doing, which was probably eating, because again, they have to eat a lot. So we've learned quite a bit in the last 6 years of watching and observing these animals. But there's still so much to learn, right? We know little compared to the other dolphin and whale species that we look at. So one thing that's important is that the sanctuaries are critical for these animals, whether they are in the sanctuaries or not. The health of the populations and the ecosystem are affected in and out of that sanctuary boundary. So those sanctuaries on the coast really help the animals here in the Salish Sea and allow us to be able to go out and see them like we do. And hopefully harbor porpoises are cooler than you thought. Hopefully that's what you learned, or that harbor porpoises are a thing if you didn't know about them before. And even if they're not flashy and jumpy and like some of the other species, they have a lot to offer. And the last thing is partnerships and collaborations help research and conservation of marine mammals. So again, we would not have learned nearly as much as quickly if we hadn't been talking to our friends in California and our colleagues. Partnerships like this with NOAA and with Explore by the Seat of Your Pants are able to educate other people and help spread the word. So all of those collaborations and partnerships between researchers and other organizations really help conserve and protect marine mammals, including the knowledge that you guys have now that you can go out and help them as well. So that is the end of my presentation. You always can visit us at www.pacmam.org. We have Instagram and Facebook if you'd like to follow us there, and of course the YouTube channel where we have some educational videos that you can look at as well. So with that, I will turn it back over to Hannah, and happy to answer any questions anybody has. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Elliser. We are going to open it up for question and answer. Joe will be monitoring those questions coming in on Slido, as well as in the question box on the control panel. So feel free to submit questions in either location, and we will do our best to get them answered.
All right, excellent. So like Hannah mentioned, we'll look in those 2 spots for the questions. And I say we take a quick break, a quick 1-2 minute break to do a couple little poll quiz questions that Cindy sent to me earlier. So if you jump back into the Slido room, you can see that I'm going to start opening a little bit up for us. So I'm opening up our first poll here. And the first question that we have here for those joining in is, did you know that you can watch marine mammals from land? You don't just have to be out on the ocean. So we'll give a few seconds for that one to come in. I've got one more poll question, then I'm going to open the quiz. It's 2 questions in the quiz to see if you were paying attention. The quicker you answer, and of course the right answer, the better your score. And we'll announce the top 3 when the time comes. But we have one more poll question after that. We're just kind of getting everybody in and refreshed. So there we go. We've got most people have answered. And yes, 100% people knew that they could definitely catch some marine mammals from shore. You don't always have to be out in that boat. Let's open up the second poll question here that we want to ask. And we're curious about, have you ever seen a marine mammal in the wild? So it doesn't count if you saw it on TV. It doesn't count if you're in a theme park. Have you been lucky enough to see a marine mammal in the wild? So a few more seconds here. Well, lucky viewers we have joining us today. 97% have said absolutely they've been able to see a marine mammal in the wild. That's pretty cool. And I've just opened up the quiz. So I'm going to give about 30 seconds for people to pop their names into the quiz. And then we're going to get things started. I see names popping in already. Whew, the audience is fast today. Lots of names coming in. Good job, good job. We're going to start in about 15 seconds. Let's get signed up. And let's see who comes out on top, who is paying attention about our marine mammals, our porpoises and our dolphins today. So here we go. I'm going to start the quiz. Each question has 20 seconds on the clock. And the first one is kicking in now. So the first one, do you know a key difference between a dolphin and a porpoise? So we have a few options here. Do dolphins breathe air, but porpoises don't? Do porpoises have a blunt rostrum, whereas dolphins are more pointy or beaked? Is it the other way around, with the porpoises having the pointy rostrums and the dolphins being rounded, or are dolphins always bigger? A few more seconds on the clock. All right. Well, so far I can see people are paying attention. We had 91% go with the right answer. Porpoises have the more blunt rostrum and dolphins are a little more pointy. Let's jump over to our final question in the quiz. Who was paying attention? Which are ways that you can identify individual whales, dolphins, or porpoises? Is it by checking out their teeth, looking for their blowholes, or is it their dorsal fins and flukes? Let's see who caught that answer. All right, 5 more seconds. The audience is on the ball. They went with their dorsal fins and flukes. Flukes are a bit better for the larger marine mammals like the whales, whereas dorsal fins work great for our dolphins and some of our porpoises. Awesome. Leaderboard. Dave, 2 out of 2 in 12 seconds. Jen, 2 out of 2 in 13 seconds. And Julia R, actually a tie for third place between Julia R and Shannon Barbara Meyer. We have 2 out of 2 in 15 seconds. Good job, everyone. Thanks for playing along in our Slido quiz today. All right, so let's see what's coming in via our question. All right. Okay, so our first question is coming in here, Cindy, and this is from Morgan. This is from our chat. Morgan's wondering, with warming waters, do you think that the diet of the marine mammals is going to change a little bit as species change?
So that's a really good question, Morgan. So warming waters affects a lot of different things. We see a lot of different range shifts of marine mammals because of warming waters. And some of that has to do with the prey because they follow where their prey is going to go. So for some animals, they may be able to shift what prey they're eating. So for example, seals, they eat like 60 different species. So they could shift if something else starts popping up more and another one goes down. But there are some species that only eat very specific things, like the resident killer whales only eat Chinook salmon. Or mainly Chinook salmon. So if something happens to that population of Chinook, then they are kind of out of luck. So I think it's going to depend a lot on the species and which species are more, they call it, have greater plasticity, are able to adjust as necessary, will be able to handle the changes that are coming, but some of them may not, depending on what they eat.
Okay, very cool. Great question to get us started. We're going to jump to another one here. You did mention those orcas. You mentioned resident orcas, but Michelle is wondering the kind of transient orcas. Do you know how far they travel?
Yeah, so transients, I'm not exactly sure. They do, I mean, they were giving the name transient because they didn't see them as much in the area. It's kind of a misnomer because they're actually around here more than they are for the residents in some cases. But they do travel hundreds of miles. I need you to okay. They do travel hundreds of miles in a day, and can. I'm not sure what the large range is, but I mean it could be, you know, thousands of miles over the course of a couple of days or weeks, depending on what they're doing. Okay. This is my son Ben, by the way. Sorry.
All right. Hey Ben. Very cool. Always great to have. I've got my little guys, Norris 3 and Finn is 7, and they can detect when a video call starts from anywhere in the house, and they'll usually
it's like
show
a
up.
Laser beam.
Pretty impressive. So I think we have a question here about the blowholes, and maybe that's inspired by one of our quiz questions. So wondering here in the Slido room if you can tell the difference between certain species by their blow pattern.
So that's a great question. So the blowholes in the first place, toothed whales have just one blowhole, and mysticetes or the baleen whales actually have 2 blowholes at the top. So if you're actually looking at the blowhole, that's one way. But especially for the larger whales, the humpbacks, the minkies, and grays and blues, they actually do have particular blow patterns. And there's a good one, I think it's on the American Cetacean Society's webpage. They actually have a little document that you can look at, and it shows the pattern of each type of blow so that you could identify it from land or from a boat. From fairly far away, you can usually tell if you know the difference. So some of them come up, you know, early and they blow kind of diagonal. Some of them are kind of up like this. Some have a heart shape. All different types.
All right, very cool. Great question. Another question from the Slido. We have someone who teaches in Nebe, Washington.
Oh, Nebe, excellent.
Yeah, and they're curious about, are there any resources available? She's a teacher and wondering for her students to help them understand the animals and the mammals and the straits better.
Yeah, so we have some stuff on our website where we have some educational documents and worksheets and things like that that you can use. We have our YouTube channel, and I'm happy to do virtual presentations or other presentations if they can get a field trip. We take kids out to our study area. Nia Bay is a little bit far, but it's drivable. You can get there from here. She's happy. Please contact me if she wants to talk more about that. That'd be great.
And also, Olympic Coast National Marine Sanctuary has a ton of great education resources as well. And as Nia Bay is super close to Olympic Coast, I would check out their website as well as the National Marine Sanctuary's website under education resources. Lots of lesson plans available for educators.
All right, perfect. So we've got a neat question here from Aaron. This is from the chat. Aaron says it seems like a lot of the identification from the dorsal fins comes from scarring and things that change over time. How good is the photo ID for juveniles, or is it much better as they get older, the Harbour porpoises?
Oh, that's a really great question. So for the dorsal fins, yes, that's why it's so critical to get out and take photos constantly throughout the year and have pictures of them from every year, because some are very stable and never change, but oftentimes they'll get new nicks or new notches, or sometimes part of the fin falls and comes off. So you do need to have those so that when that changes, you can still see some of the marks that it's the same animal and you can match it. So they can change, but if you take pictures enough, it will remain stable. So for juveniles, that is a very good point. Calves, especially when they're first born, it's really hard to ID them because they have those clean fins. And through the juvenile period, they might get some more, but so it is a bit easier with adults because they generally will change less than juveniles will over time, for sure.
All right, good question. Let's see, we've got a couple questions coming in here about helping with research or volunteering. Are there any opportunities like that available?
Absolutely. We have an intern right now that's actually out in the field as I'm giving the presentation here. So we have you can volunteer to come out, and we can take you out into the field with us and also show you what it's like to do work on in the office, because we always like to remember the fun parts about going out and seeing marine mammals and the field work, but there's a lot of work that goes into in the lab, in the office, of entering data and things like that. So we try to give a whole experience for that. But we also have citizen scientists that will just go out and observe and then send us their observations. We train you in how to do that, and then you can send their information in. So we have a lot of different opportunities for that, for any volunteers and interns and things like that.
All right, excellent. Some citizen science action. That was actually another question that came up. So that's great that there are those opportunities for the public to get involved as well. Very cool. Okay, a very hard-hitting question here. Austin wants to hear from all three of us. Austin wants to know what our favorite marine mammals are. So maybe Cindy, you want to start us off, then Hannah?
Oh, I'm gonna choose just one. I mean, I came into this because I just love all marine mammals, but I guess I'd have to say the Harbour porpoise at this point, because I've kind of fallen in love with them with starting to do the research with them here. But one that I would really love to see that's on my bucket list to see in the wild is a blue whale, because they're just amazing.
All right, Hannah.
I am going to have to say the manatee. I have not seen one in the wild yet, but it is on my bucket list. So I would say manatee.
I got to see one in Florida. I used to live in Florida, so they're really cool.
That's lucky. Yeah, they are very cool.
Very cool. I am going to roll with sea otter. I was off the coast of California not too long ago doing some diving, and I got to see some sea otters, and so they're pretty high up there for me. They're pretty cool. Okay. What do we have next? Let's go with, here we go. So someone here is tuning in, and they're wondering, they're saying that they're seeing more harbor seals in the past few years than say 10 years ago. Is your research backing that up? Are you seeing more harbor porpoises?
So we haven't pulled the numbers directly yet, but the harbor porpoise population from other researchers that we've talked to and that have done like abundance estimates, they are increasing. They have been increasing over the last few years. They are kind of coming to a asymptote, like they're kind of leveling off. They're reaching carrying capacity in the area, so that's the most harbor seals that can live here. But they definitely have been increasing over the last 10, 15, 20 years. So that's probably right on with what's actually going on.
All right, very cool.
Of course, now there's more transient killer whales coming in and taking some from the population, but.
All right, fair enough. Let's grab one more question here. Let's go to, well, let's talk about those blue whales. So the one that you're hoping to see. Cindy, we have a question from someone in the Slido, and they're wondering if you can tell us a little bit about their movements, like how far do they travel during their migration?
So that's a really good question, and I don't even know if the blue whale researchers quite know that yet. Blue whales, even though they are giant, like they're up to 100 foot, their heart is literally the size of a car, and adult human can crawl through the arteries. That's that big. They are very hard to find. So there's been a lot of research happening in the last few years that's learned a lot more about them, but I don't know if they know the full extent of their movement patterns yet.
All right, and I really like that answer for two reasons. One, that good science, you go out with maybe 10 questions and come back with like 100 more, and I think that's part of all good science. And then our oceans in particular, I mean, we've got better maps of the surface of the moon and Mars than we do of our ocean floor. So talk about opportunity for future careers, new species discoveries. There's all kinds of amazing opportunities for those younger students who are watching today to have a career studying our ocean.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I'm going to start off with a huge shout out to all the groups who join us live on GoToWebinar. All of our live interactions are being recorded, and then they end up on the Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants YouTube channel. So in the chat, I did put a link to that playlist. And so if you check out that link, you can find 5 up so far, and we'll get this one up as soon as we can as well. And Cindy, just thank you so much. That was a lot of fun today. Thanks for introducing us to some of those marine mammals. I'm going to throw things back to Hannah to wrap us up for today.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Joe and Cindy. That was great. I know I learned a ton about porpoises, dolphins, marine mammals. That was great. To move us forward, I wanted to also highlight that our live interactions have been recorded. Like Joe said, we have 5 up in the playlist so far, so please check those out. I also want to talk about the upcoming live interactions we have. For students like the ones that we partook in today with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, the upcoming programs are located at the link there, sanctuaries.noaa.gov/live/watch. Our next program will be this Wednesday at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and we're going to be exploring the depths of the National Marine Sanctuary of American Samoa. So that one will be super exciting, talking about deep sea exploration. We also host a webinar series for educators, where there are also 2 programs this week. I want to also plug Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants and all of the wonderful opportunities that they share to connect you with leading experts and explorers from around the world. And then NOAA Ocean Today is another great live interaction platform that hosts a webinar a month. So check out any of those links if you are interested in live interactions. And just to close, following today's presentation, you will be prompted to take a very brief survey. So we recommend that if you are an adult, that you take this survey to let us know how we can adapt our programs to best meet your needs. So we would really like you and appreciate your time filling out this short survey, only about 3 minutes long. With that, I want to thank both Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants and Pacific Mammal Research for joining us today with this live interaction. And I hope you tune into another live program soon. All right, this concludes today's webinar.